Welcome to Comics Now. I'm Brian Warshaw, and I am joined, as always, at least for 2 weeks in a row, by my co-host, Jay Yaws. Jay, how's it going tonight?
It's all right. Good to be back in, 4 days, 5 days after our last recording session.
Yeah, it was not that long ago.
Point being, it's nice to be able to not squeeze in as if it's kind of an obligation or everything, but just things happen and things have been happening, and which has resulted in a less than consistent podcast experience over the past couple of weeks and months. But just want to keep everything going strong as best we can.
As one of my favorite bands, Dawes, say in one of their songs,
things happen, that's all they ever do.
I've heard of them, and I've heard some of their jams. I may have heard that one. I'm not sure, but still.
Yes. Well, there you go. Okay, well, anyway, Jay, I understand you have handpicked some news for us to talk about tonight. What have you got?
Yes, because not an awful lot happened since Monday when we recorded last, but pulled a couple of things here. This announcement is a little bit older, but some new details about it came up. Boom Studios have announced a new series from Tom Taylor and Daniel DiNicuolo called 7 Secrets. Even with the little plot description that they have, I'm still not entirely sure what the series is about, but the most recent release that they had for it was a first look at DiNicuolo's cover, as well as a variant cover from Miguel Mercado. The basic synopsis is, for centuries, the Order has trusted innkeepers and holders to guard the secrets in 7 briefcases against all harm. But when their stronghold is attacked and the secrets put in peril, the entire Order must face their greatest fear, an enemy who knows too much and is willing to kill to get what he wants. Now the Order's newest member, Caspar, must discover the truth of the secrets before the enemy does, or risk losing everything. Have you given any of this a look since I've posted any of it?
I'm looking at it now, and that's the first time. But I actually really like the concept, even though it is a pretty spare concept in what we have described right here. And I really like the variant cover, especially with the assumption that it's going to be, wrap around. One's on the front, one's on the back.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. It seems like a neat concept.
Yeah, neat concept. A good creative team. We love Tom Taylor, and he's one of those. It's weird. There are a lot of writers that work really well with creator-owned stuff that they have, and other writers that work really well with established characters and licensed properties, but don't really mesh with both as much. Taylor, pretty much anything I've read of his, whether it's an original property of his own or handling stuff with big 2 characters and everything, I've liked pretty much everything I've read.
Well, great.
Okay. I didn't know if you agreed or disagreed. I was kind of leaving it open there, but
I do think I've enjoyed just about everything of his I've read. That X-Men Red started to get less interesting for me in a fairly short period of time, but most everything else of his that I've read, I think I've really enjoyed.
Sure, wasn't too crazy about that Black Mask one shot that he did either. I think it was Black Mask that he did for the Year of the Villain, I think it was. But other than that, even with concepts that I maybe normally wouldn't like Injustice or something like Deceased, he's a good writer. He knows how to write these characters. But anyway, so 7 Secrets. I've already closed the news post there. I believe it comes out this August, but it's up on the site if you want to go check it out and fact check me and yell at me. Anyway. Next piece is Chip Mosher and Peter Krause have announced an original graphic novel called Blacking Out that has gone live on Kickstarter. Funny thing is, I believe it had a $500 goal, and when I posted this, yesterday or the day before, it had exceeded that by at least 1,000%. So. Or maybe it was 100%. I don't know. I'm bad at math. I think that the last I saw, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up here. But their goal was $500, and they have, with 27 days to go, they have raised $15,909. So, even though it's not 1,000 or even 100% exceeding their goal, that's still, a pretty decent, amount of money above their initial goal.
I think that the $500 goal is probably more just a strategic number so that they could hit their goal early, and because for 500, total bucks, you're not really going to be able to efficiently produce a hardcover deluxe oversized graphic novel,
right?
Even
at 56 pages, it's gonna I mean that was a very, very conservative initial goal, but whatever. It looks really good. It looks very, I don't even know if disturbing or creepy or whatever is right, but it does look like what they promise, a very heavy neo-noir style story. It's about a disgraced former detective who is battling alcoholism and fading faculties, it says, but he tries to solve an unsolved murder case going on a single clue, which was a discarded crucifix. It sounds really intriguing. You were saying that you were thinking of backing it just because, something like this would be good to hold in your hands. And yeah, I definitely gonna check it out because they sent along a preview PDF for it. So definitely interested to check this story out too.
Yeah, I do think it's a little perplexing that you don't have more people backing this yet. And I just you look at some of the talent attached, even not folks like Tom Muller doing logo and art direction, and you've got some people doing these lobby cards, and some of the stupidly successful Indiegogo projects are worth the money that they've raised. I think of the books that Doug TenNapel has done and a few other ones as well, where the artwork, the quality of the story, and the fit and finish of the actual book is outstanding. But it seems like a lot of the successes in crowdfunding are as much cultural as they are about the actual content.
Right.
Because I look at this and the talent attached, and then more importantly than the talent attached is just the quality of the pages that are in the Kickstarter here. And it just based on what some other crowdfunding campaigns have done, I would expect this thing to be over $50,000 right now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was kind of surprised when I went back and looked at it, because I could have sworn it was $50-something thousand that they had already raised, but the fact that it was at 15 was surprising. I mean, still a decent amount of money, and almost 300 backers. But yeah, to your point, it's like this is to kind of maybe tap dance around the point you were making in a broad sense. I mean, this seems like it is a story and a graphic novel that was written and illustrated and put together just because they wanted to tell the story. It wasn't for any sort of to really send any sort of message or really stand for anything other than making a good comic. So maybe that's why. I mean, Chip Mosher, I've heard the name a lot, but he is what is he? He's the head of content for Comixology. So he has a big hand in the comics industry, but he's not like a name that would automatically grab you as a established talent. Like if Tom Taylor was writing something and decided to go the crowdfunding route, it's some of that.
Sure.
I'm sure that's also why they pulled in guys like Peter Krause and Tom Muller, and they have variant covers, those lobby cards, and everything from like Dan Panosian, I think it was, Eduardo Riso, Francisco Francavilla, lots of really, really talented artists, Emma Rios and Jamal Eigel. So I'm sure that's part of it, but anyway, yeah.
I think that the high price for a physical copy might have something to do with why it hasn't raised as much money too. It's $50 is the cheapest tier that has a physical copy of the book in it, so that might be hurting the campaign as well.
Yeah,
But anyway, we don't have to dwell.
Yeah. Anyway, that's, like I said, not much else has happened in the past couple of days, so that's really about all I have. So, what book are we talking about this week?
We are talking about Avengers number 33, and somebody might wonder, why are Brian and Jay talking about Avengers number 33? They haven't talked about any of the other Avengers books in Jason Aaron's run, and we're 33 issues in. Well, your surprise will evaporate when you look at the cover of Avengers number 33 and see that, it's got a big old Moon Knight on the front of it, and it says The Age of Khonshu, Part 1. It's been a while since we talked about Moon Knight, but if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know that I became quickly obsessed with Moon Knight once I started reading Moon Knight. And even without an ongoing series being published for a while, the interest is still high. And a lot of speculation surrounded this event, and certainly this first issue because of that. What was Aaron going to do with Moon Knight? Was he going to turn him into just a 100% villain? People were worried about what might be done with the character in here. I think it's safe to say, after reading it, that most people will probably be somewhat satisfied, at least, with what he did here. So, Jay, what did you think of this issue after you read it?
Well, I had the same questions that I'm sure our listeners had. I was like, why are we talking about a random issue of Avengers? But then when I saw the cover, I was like, oh, that's why we're talking about a random issue of the Avengers. I mean, I went into it not like begrudgingly, but more of am I going to be able to keep up with all of this? There were a couple of things that came up throughout the reading that I was confused about, more based on current Marvel continuity than the story itself. But overall, I mean, I enjoy the story. It was very entertaining. The concept is very easy to jump right into. I mean, it was kind of in the best way, a very formulaic issue, in that it followed a set formula. You had, Moon Knight encountering a hero and fighting them, taking their power, then moving on to the next hero. So it followed just a formula that it set for itself. That made it easy to read as somebody who hasn't really been keeping up with this series or anything else that's been going on with most of these characters. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It was there were a couple of pretty funny moments, some really just interesting ideas, seeing where they're going to take this concept from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, folks, obviously, spoilers are ahead. We're going to talk about the contents of the issue. So if you haven't read it yet, I would recommend that you do read it. It's worth it. And in a lot of places, you can probably actually get it from your comic shop now, because A lot of comic shops are open now. My comic shop was open. Did not actually buy this issue, though. I was trying to stay conservative on my bill this week. Got a few other things which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think the reason I think that people will be happy, Moon Knight fans will be happy, is because the setup, the familiar formula of somebody taking out all of these other heroes. It gives the impression that Moon Knight has finally snapped, that he is taking out the Avengers for some nefarious end. There's always been a bit of a ambiguity on where Khonshu really stands in regards to the affairs of men. And you wonder if maybe Khonshu has kind of gotten the best of Mark's mind finally, and is having him do something unsavory. But in the end, it's actually elevating Moon Knight as a hero. Seeing him go through all of these people, because of who Moon Knight is, it doesn't feel like cheap or forced just for the sake of the story. And then it gets even stronger when he points out, I think to Doctor Strange, that it's like the fullest moon, the biggest supermoon. Yeah, tonight's the biggest supermoon in a million years.
So take solace in the fact you wouldn't have won anyway, or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, so I really appreciate that. And then it is just a lot of fun. All of these pages, seeing him take on these different heroes. All of the Iron Fist moves being printed.
I love that.
And then just the ever increasing the Fist of Khonshu in answer. Really, really cool. I'm not a huge fan of the modern Marvel style of artwork where there's less ink and more work for the colorist to do, but I actually do really enjoy the pages in here, and in particular the storytelling by the artist in here as well. Javier Garron, which I'm pretty sure we've seen him in some other books before. But I do like his work. He does a great job with all of these different characters, which is, that's a challenge in a book like the Avengers.
I also really liked that Moon Knight had a different appearance in each when he encountered different heroes, because like with Iron Fist he was shirtless, had his enchanted arm wraps in his mask and some pants, but nothing else. But then when he encountered Doctor Strange, he was in his actual like suit, not his superhero costume, but a white, like a tailored suit that he's been wearing.
The Mr. Knight garb.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then when he encounters Black Panther, he looks a little more regal and courtly, like a king, to kind of, I'm sure, have the air and pretension of equal footing with T'Challa, but also I'm sure to have some sort of jab at him as well of,
and he's got a wrestling belt.
Yes. And then with Thor, he was just in his looks like his regular Moon Knight outfit, but this is it was entertaining. The thing that was more confusing was like Thor's appearance here versus in Venom 25, which I just read like right before it. Venom 25, he still has the beard, has the gold arm, and the costume he was wearing before the Cates run. But in here, he's wearing his like King Thor outfit that he's been wearing in his solo title, and has both of his arms. Not one that is outfitted in gold and enchanted, no doubt. So that was, just some more confusion about that, but it was more just internal Marvel continuity than anything. Because who knows, Venom number 25 and Avengers 33 here may have been meant to originally have been released, a month and a half apart from each other. But now that, they're rolling things out again, they were the ones on deck. So these are getting released at the same time. Who knows? But yeah, overall is an interesting idea. I like the fact that he wasn't. It ties back to something that came from. Oh gosh, what was it? The Avengers. it wasn't Legacies, was it? That big one shot that tried to be Marvel's Rebirth, but
Marvel Comics
no,
1000 or no Legacy.
Legacy.
Yeah, Legacy. It was just
With
called
like
Legacy.
the original Avengers, you've got, the Phoenix Force that they mention is, still untethered. Star Brand that's being kept under hiding.
The Star Brand child.
Yes. And then, the fact that he couldn't take out the Black Panther because his power is in his blood, so he had to take all of him. It's not just something that he could remove, like the power of Iron Fist, or even the powers of Doctor Strange. So I thought that it was interesting that it tied back into that, which I'm sure was something that Jason Aaron's been building up to in his run with Avengers and some of the other characters as well. So it was kind of cool just seeing them bring that back from another issue that I happened to have read some time ago.
I absolutely love, you brought up Thor and his lack of a golden arm, but I love the exchange with Thor more than any other exchange with the other heroes, because just the way he takes Thor down, the revelation that the Uru was actually Moonrock,
Yes.
and that that makes it possible for Moon Knight to manipulate it at this point, and then, I'm going to read this. Thor is reaching out and saying, "Mjolnir, why have you forsaken?" And Moon Knight says in the narration, "I call the moons from far and wide, from galaxies away, from as far as the eye of Agamotto can see. My name is Mark Spector, the Moon Knight, and I have felled a god today." And just the art of just like all these moons from various places.
Just converging on Thor.
Hitting Thor with moons.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very very cosmic and very crazy and very weird, and but still, something that was accessible to read, because, like I said, I haven't really kept up with Moon Knight since the issues that we covered. Have tried to read a couple of Avengers issues since then, just can't get into it. But this was, I think, just a perfect storm of interesting concept and good use of the characters to make me enjoy this a lot.
Yeah, first I'll say I can't wait to see who this threat is that Moon Knight is trying to protect the Earth from. But then also, it struck me as you're saying this, that this is, with the exception maybe of Thor God of Thunder, this is my favorite thing I've read that Aaron has written. And Aaron's a good writer, but I don't think I've ever read anything of his where I thought it was great. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this is like, my favorite book of the month or anything like that necessarily, but I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it more than anything else that he's done. So very excited to see what he does next, and this is a good pool for him to play in.
Yes, I guess you could say, Brian.
I thought you were going to do it. I was going to let you do it.
Okay, well, that's not my thing, but we still like comics.
Yes, we do. Even after quarantine and shops being closed and talking about old things because new things were few and far between, we definitely still like comics.
Yes.
And what other comics do you like, Jay? We totally flipped the script.
This is weird.
It feels wrong.
Yeah, it does. Other things I've been enjoying, the Superman Man of Tomorrow, like those digital first comics by Robert Venditti, Paul Pelletier, Drew Hennessy, Adriana Lucas, and Clayton Cowles. Have just been really good, solid, one and done. Well, the past two installments have been a two-parter, gasp. But in general, they've been one and done. These feed into each other a little bit more than some of the other digital first titles that I've looked at. But even then, you could read each one out of order or in succession or whatever and still get the most out of the story. This little two-parter was about Lex Luthor being overly vigilant in this crime-busting technology that he implements around Metropolis. And, of course, ultimately, it's up to Superman to prove that what makes Metropolis unique is the people and the inspiration that he gives them, but also how much the people inspire Superman in return, just to do the right thing and help each other and everything. It's just a really solid, well done two-parter. And I also picked up in Comixology for free. There was a Usagi Yojimbo graphic novel that was published by Dark Horse a couple of years ago called Yokai. Like I said, it was free. I'm pretty sure if you go in there and search for it, you can just download it and without any cost. And it's really good. It's about 70 pages. It's about Usagi going through an enchanted forest in Japan and having to fight off a bunch of supernatural creatures that are trying to converge on this forest to find a living soul so that they can fully come back into the real world. And then he just has to fight them off with a friend of his. And, it's Stan Sakai's writing and art are just fantastic. And just a really quick, breezy read that, again, free. The price is right, but even then it would be worth, dropping a couple of bucks on too. So I've been enjoying those. How about you, Brian? What have you been reading?
So, delighted, of course, that Venom number 25 was out this Wednesday, and I enjoyed that pretty thoroughly. And for the benefit of the people that can see, I am holding up the variant cover that I got at the shop. And wow,
Jeez.
Look at that thing. That is just glorious. Forgive the mic noise for whacking it. Folks, if you're not watching this, let me give you the name of the artist so you know which one to look up. Great live radio. Live radio. Live radio. Live radio. Come on. It was a big one. This one was this the Raposa? I think this was the Raposa, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's awesome. It's a red background and a big mouth agape Venom. You can find it if you look for the variant covers. Very, very nice cover. It was listed from my shop as an incentive variant cover, which means I would have assumed it carried a higher price tag, but it did not. So I got it for a decent price in addition to my regular cover. But anyway, the book itself, the conclusion to the Venom Island story arc, and it's pretty much Eddie just talking to the Avengers about what's been going on since the beginning of the Cates and Stegman and... how did I forget the name? Coelho. He was the other principal artist on a lot of the Venom books. Since that run. So everything with Null and just kind of talking about what happened with Carnage and about his son and all this other stuff. So, and then there was a backup story by David Michelinie and Ron Lim. And that was just an absolute... well, I thought it was a delight. I don't know if you did, but I enjoyed it.
It was weird, but I enjoyed it too, yeah.
Yeah, if you read Venom comics from that time period, it can be a little weird sometimes. I mean, there was one I read, I forget exactly when it was from, but where like Eddie is like becomes interested in some woman, but like the symbiote sort of gets a little handsy, and then she gets creeped out, and it's so there was some weird stuff, but. There's something about that type of weirdness that is simultaneously uncomfortable and yet compelling enough to read. I don't know. I enjoyed the backup story, and thankfully for the normal people out there, it did not feature a handsy symbiote. So
they just really liked peaches.
But it did feature Eddie in a symbiote generated Hawaiian shirt that then became a symbiote generated Tarzan style toga, basically. So that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. The other book that I picked up from the shop for myself and really enjoyed this was Plunge. And is this number 3 or 4 this week?
Yeah.
I think it's number 3. Yeah, so if you guys remember a couple months ago, we talked about Plunge number 1 on the show, and great horror miniseries from DC Comics' Hill House imprint, written by Joe Hill, for whom the imprint is named, and the artwork is by the fantastic Stuart Immonen. And I actually thought, and maybe it's because of the virus delay, but I feel like his artwork, aesthetically, the finishes in issue 3 were more in line with what we saw in issue 1. Issue 2 seemed a little bit rougher on the top coat, so to speak. But the story continues to get creepier, but still really interesting, enough to keep me, who's not really into being creeped out, interested in the story. So those are the books that I was really taken with this week, in addition to Avengers.
All right,
33.
fantastic.
So there you have it. Jay, where can people find us until next week, where we will hopefully be talking about more new comics, or perhaps an old comic?
Yes,
with an old friend.
We'll see. As always, you can find us on our website, comics-now.com, where we have our reviews, daily news posts, podcasts, everything, one-stop shop, comics-now.com. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/comicsnow. If you just want to throw a couple bucks our way to help us keep the lights on, just to help us be able to generate and create more consistent new content, head over there. As always, we enjoy any support you want to give us, just in listening to the show, interacting with us, just being our, friends and everything. We appreciate that, but it does help being able to maintain server fees and everything each month. And you'll also get some stuff in return, like you get to hear what we thought about the 2011 Green Lantern film, and whether we think it is a misunderstood masterpiece, a rightfully maligned piece of junk, or maybe somewhere in between. But that just went live, and we have a couple of other episodes, Patreon exclusive episodes, that we have either scheduled or ready to get out there soon. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ComicsNowCast. Like us on Facebook. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/ComicsNowCast. Email us at comicsnowcast@gmail.com. You can follow me personally on Twitter at JAYAWS. You can rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a nice 5-star rating and a written review there. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher and leave us a review there as well. And listen to us on any other podcasting platform of your choice. As always, I'm Jay, joined by Brian, and this is Comics Now.